But let me tell you some stories first, and then we can chat, okay? All right. Now, I want to tell you, I really love this lecture. I wrote it for a conference I went to several years ago, and I worked super hard on it. And I have some stories that from my private practice. Um, but let me share my screen. Let me get this started from the beginning. All right. Here we go. Now, do you all see, well, one slide or two? One? Okay. All right. Okay. So tonight's lecture is called the Towards Maternity Care that includes the baby's experiences, 5 first steps. And this is introducing me for those of you who don't know me. I'm a somatic practitioner. I specialize in working with the baby's experience, and I've been doing this for a long time. And my introduction to becoming a perinatal practitioner started in 1999, but I've been involved with mothers and babies ever since I was in my early 20s. And I started by traveling around the world and improving clinical services with USAID, and I was specialized in maternal and child health. So instead of becoming a doctor, I became a somatic practitioner that works with healing earliest trauma, specializes in the baby's experience. I support mothers and babies particularly. And tonight I have 3 takeaways, and it's divided into 2 parts, this talk. The first part is really going over some of the challenges our birthing families have. And then really, I would like to introduce a possible change to the system that includes the baby's experience. And I do that from a trauma-informed perspective. And in my action steps, what I would like to just say is I recognize that babies are aware, and I think those of you who are here tonight have that. I mean, you are here because you want to learn how to, from those of you who I met here tonight, you want to bring this into your own communities. I have a 5-point first step process, and you can do any of the steps. You don't have to go one then the other. And then we can work to change the system. And I think that we are getting there. And I'm excited about that because I've been doing this for 20 years and I definitely am seeing changes. I'm seeing researchers that agree that babies have experiences. I'm seeing programs and practitioners of all kinds being much more highly trained. I'm seeing alarm bells being rung about the mother's experience of postpartum mood disorders and the impact on the baby even more. I'm seeing programs that are trying to be more preventative. I would like to see it more broadly. And in fact, if you're out there and you're listening and you have a program that is inclusive of the baby for childbirth education or breastfeeding or birth or postpartum, please get in touch with me because I kind of want to tell your stories. And maybe I want to have you come and tell your story. But so these are my action steps. Really, I want to promote a way to include the baby even more than we do now. So just to start, babies are the best scientists and the best learners that we know of in the universe. And this is Alison Gopnik. She wrote The Philosopher in the Crib. She's written, I think, 3 books on the baby's experience, and she works a lot with, I think, just different kinds of baby laboratories, and she's in this movie, The Beginning of Life, which is a very interesting film. It's in 3 or 4 different languages, I think, but I clipped this from this. The best babies are the best scientists and the best learners. Maybe her book was The Scientist in the Crib. I can't remember. But back in the day when I first started, I think I have it here. Yeah. Babies just don't immediately start becoming scientists after they are born. They start in utero. So like babies, just there isn't a switch that you flip on and suddenly they become scientists. So when I first started studying babies, people just wanted to quote how babies' minds are blooming, buzzing confusion. But we know that they're much more observant, much more sensitive, much more perceptive than we ever imagined. So here's the story. Here's the story for you. I wanted to tell you about the story of turning a baby in utero, and I've done this several times. And actually, when mothers come to me and their babies are transverse or and not in a really good position, I say, well, let's talk to the baby. And this woman came to me. She was, I guess, she was at the end of her pregnancy, and she came and I could tell she was pretty upset. I asked her what was going on, and she goes, well, my doctor has told me my baby is transverse and to prepare for a long labor and probably a C-section. And this is a really hard message for a pregnant mother to hear at the end of her pregnancy when she's been working hard to make this baby for almost 10 months, and now suddenly she's faced with a birth that she didn't really want, and there she is, she's sitting in your office. So long ago, I've read an article about a doctor in Thailand who would talk to babies in utero and then ring a little bell and have the baby turn toward the bell. So I put her on the table after I massaged her, made a lot of room in her pelvis, and I I put her hands, I said, find your baby with your hands, and then I put my hands on her hands, and I began to talk to the baby. I just told the baby about, you're getting ready to be born, and ideally, and you and your mom can do it together. You know how to be born. Your mom knows how to birth, and let's just turn you head down so that you can be born. You can do this together. I explained what a C-section was and how you didn't want it, and then I said, turn your head toward the bell, and I rang the bell, and immediately the mother sat up, and her baby turned. And she went out of my office, and I got an email the next day saying she went into labor, and the labor was 6 hours long. The baby came right out. There was no long labor and no C-section. And this is just to show you that babies are listening. You can talk with them. They're responsive and smart and prescient and super sentient and moral and discerning and observant. They're listening. They're capable. And they're cooperative. They're also forgiving. I love working with babies. They're very direct. They tell you a lot. You have to be able to know what they're saying. If you don't know what they're saying, at least meet them. But I think that we can do a lot more for our families that are birthing and for our families with babies. So this is a quote from David Chamberlain, who is a co-founder of the Association for Pre and Perinatal Psychology and Health. We know that we know a lot from the transgenerational side that stress crosses generations. We know that we can go from the last trimester at least to the first 3 years is when we lay down all these neural networks. But the womb is a school and every baby attends. It's a quote from David Chamberlain, and he was a champion of a sensitive baby, and it was really hoping that we could change birthing practices to help really receive our babies and really help them feel seen and heard and understood. So this is the last frontier, and like I told you, I think we're getting closer and closer to truly including the baby when it comes to pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. So the next slide series is data. I wanted just to give you the background. Like, this is the story. This is the reason why. Like, our birthing families need support. And these statistics are like a year and a half old, but it's not so different. But I went through maternal mortality, morbidity, infant mortality, morbidity, paid parent leave, which I think is one of the things that really needs to happen. Like that is, if there is a final frontier, maybe that's it. While I've made this presentation a year and a half ago, the government did approve 12 weeks of paid parental leave, but many countries have a year or two, that parents can take to be with their children. In this presentation, I talk about opioid addiction, and then I have a little window into early brain development, which is really cool because I got the data I'm going to show you tonight from a course for obstetricians. So this is the kind of thing I'm telling you that makes me feel excited and happy and giddy even. Okay, just a few statistics about birth. We know that between 25 and 34% of women report their births were traumatic. This is from Penny Simpkin. I think that number is even higher depending on who you read. Some studies report that 1 in 4 women who give birth will express the symptoms of PTSD. That's Kathleen Kendall Tackett. Other reports, it's like I said, it really depends on who you read. 6 to 9% of women develop true PTSD. That's PSTD, no, PTSD from birth, with many of them having early complex trauma. So what we're talking about are women that already have an imprint of trauma in their bodies before they get into birth. So those women had adverse childhood experiences or molestation or sexual assault often in their history. Here are a few other considerations. Like I said, childhood maltreatment. This is from a very good book called Mothering and Trauma. I think it's what's called Mothering and Trauma. I have a resource list at the end of this because I went into so much data because I love the research that I can make sure you all get a copy of this presentation. So this is what childhood maltreatment predisposes women. Like I said, a lot of the women that have PTSD have complex early trauma. So it's defined as all forms of physical and emotional ill treatment, sexual abuse, neglect, and exploitation that results in actual or potential harm to the child's health, development, and dignity. So this is in the body of the women that are pregnant and birthing. And part of what I've been teaching is in preconception, really helping our parents clear their history, their trauma, before they get pregnant. Approximately 1 in 3 adults have experienced some form of maltreatment as a child. And in the US, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experience some form of contact sexual violence in their lifetime. So for mortality, I mean, our country, I think 2 years ago, when I wrote this presentation, there was a lot of expose on how our maternal mortality in this country. I mean, we are having a real problem with that, and it's complex. And I have gotten some more statistics on why, but we're just neglecting. We're not listening to our women, and that was the bottom line. I think I actually have some more statistics on that here. So a mother giving birth in the US is about 3 times as likely to die as a mother in Britain or Canada. I mean, why? What? Like we spend 3 times more on our healthcare than most other developed nations. So it's just what is happening in our country around supporting birthing women and other baby dyads and families with babies. For every American woman who dies from childbirth, 70 nearly die. So that adds up to more than 50,000 women who suffer severe maternal morbidity. And I have that defined. The CDC came out with the latest report in that. But it's sort of headlined by hemorrhage and other forms of what happens after childbirth. But the main headliner around morbidity is hemorrhage, which is really preventable. A patient safety group called the Alliance for Innovation on Maternal Health, AIM, put the nationwide number really around 80,000. So after conducted an in-depth study of devastating complications in hospitals in 4 different states. So what are those morbidity? What is that? I'm getting a chat here. I can't read it, unfortunately. Um, I'll make sure you write down your questions. I will respond to them when I'm done. But this comes from this NPR. NPR did a really great expose on that. So here are those statistics I wanted to show you. Like severe maternal mortality has an increase of 200% from over the years of 1993 to 2014, and 60% of that can be prevented. Blood transfusion was the most common indicator for severe maternal morbidity. And women just basically didn't feel believed. They didn't feel listened to. This is from that NPR expose, which was really good on maternal morbidity in our country, or mortality. We have a culture of denial and delay. We just don't pay enough attention. And this is pre-COVID. I had one slide on COVID that I want to share with you, but really we're not paying enough attention, according to what the CDC and this wonderful expose that NPR did. We need to listen more to our women. So shifting into infant morbidity or mortality, we know that our infant mortality rate is better. It's down to 5.8 now, and our worldwide rank, we really should be much better than this in the US. I mean, I'm talking the US here, but we're 49th out of 222 countries between the Faroe Islands and the Northern Mariana Islands. One of the things I want to talk about more is prematurity. I mean, I think that these are babies that are born less than 37 weeks. It's the #1 cause of death of US babies. It's now 9.8 per 1,000, which is one of the worst of the high resource nations. But when we're looking at disparities, which is, I mean, we're talking a lot about that in our country right now. In 2016, prematurity was way higher. It's 14 per 1,000 among African American women. So here's a display of this comparison. So in the US, a Black woman is 3 to 4 times likely to die as a white woman. And the infant mortality rate is here by ethnicity. You can see that per 1,000 live births, you've got almost like 11.5 for non-Hispanic Black, and down over here Asian. So you can see just how much more at risk it is to be a person of color in our country. Of course, we kind of knew that. The past 6 months have shown us, and the message is really clear. This is where we're ranked in terms of prematurity. I mean, we're high on the list. I mean, #1 is India, then there's China, then Nigeria, Pakistan, Indonesia, and then the US, and then Bangladesh. I mean, Bangladesh has a better record than us when it comes to prematurity, which is, I think, outrageous. I don't know what's happening with our families, but clearly they need more support. Clearly they need a little bit more than we can do better, is what I'm trying to say. So here's more about that morbidity from prematurity. This is where I work with babies and mothers, and these are the things that we find when there's prematurity. There's breathing problems, feeding difficulties, cerebral palsy, developmental delay, vision problems, hearing problems, emotional, it's difficult, financially it's difficult, it's really hard on marriages, and then there's the stress and survival energy is what these families are have to deal with. And there's some outstanding NICUs in our country, I do believe. But this is what we're working with here. We're working with a morbidity and prematurity rate that's really high. A couple more things. This is the specialty that when people come to see me, there's difficulty breastfeeding, difficulty sleeping. There's a lot of tongue tie or intrauterine constraint, which is the baby's body having difficulty so the baby couldn't breastfeed, cranial nerve issues. And all these contribute to difficulty bonding, which is like the root of our health. We know that attachment and bonding, secure attachment, creates a balanced nervous system and greater capacity to find one's life purpose. So it's not like if you don't get a good start, it's not definitive. There's ways to heal it, and sometimes it can become a great gift. But I'm trying to flag here is that we can do better. We can change our system. Mood disorder is the most common disorder now of pregnancy. Um, it's gotten really quite high. This is perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, PMADS. So I think it's 1 in 4 birthing women. I think that some of the statistics for women of color or women who are poor or teenagers, the rate's much higher. And 50% of these women will not seek help, and only a small percentage, even if they do seek help, will actually get better. This is the statistic I think I showed you. I told you that I think United States now offers 12 weeks, I think, yes. But what's really interesting about this data, which comes from the Very Good God Boss Maternity Leave Resource Center, it's just how many women who have babies work. 70%, like 57% of U.S. workers are women. Like 2/3 of those are women with children under the age of 18. And 57% of working women have a baby under 1. So that means they go to daycare. In terms of the opioid epidemic, I put this in here because we had such a hard time in our country. I don't know where it is now, but back when I wrote this 2 years ago, we're looking at this huge rate of increase, 433% from 1.5 to 8 per 1,000 hospital births. And if any of you have borne witness to the suffering of a baby who is dependent on opioid, this neonatal abstinence syndrome, it's really hard. So we're looking at a cost of $462 million alone, just on this epidemic. And finally, I wanted to share you this. This is from our early brain development course for obstetricians that I found on the Center for the Developing Child, Harvard's website. But you can see how we're saying now that baby's experience does impact all these things. Brain circuits that develop then, they impact all these things over the first year. They start there. But we really know it starts at conception, and if not before. So I wanted to show you this one little study, this one little slide about the coronavirus. So during coronavirus lockdowns, some doctors wondered, where are the premies? This comes from the New York Times. And what they found is that during lockdown, during like the time like in early spring, when 2 to 3 months, we're told to stay at home. It's not all over the world this happened, but like in Denmark, the number of babies born after less than 28 weeks of gestation dropped 90%. 90%. In Ireland, the rate of premies with very low birth weight was down by 73%. And there have been smaller decreases in parts of Canada, Australia, and the Netherlands. And so different clinics reported around the world that babies were staying in longer, they were gaining weight better. One idea was that the pollution went down. So with the pollution down, mothers' bodies were less inflamed. Another was that the stress went down because mothers could stay at home. And they had more support because their husbands were at home too. But they're looking into this. There are several articles. This is from the New York Times. But somehow this not having to go out, not having the rigor of the schedule, having those layers of support at home, we're seeing babies that gain weight. They don't want low birth weight. Babies that are stay in longer. So I think this is a really good, interesting, observable thing that happened during our lockdowns, among other things. I just want to take a little pause. I'm gonna look at you, and I also want to see your faces, and also I wanted to see what people were saying. Yes, thank you, Lisa. I like to give pauses, especially when I like have all those statistics. That stuff's a lot. Hey, Lisa Pearl. Cool.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So, I had a client, well, I had a client, she also had, it was interesting in labor, like you said, that at one point, I guess because they didn't want to get a doctor in the middle of the night when they really could have broke her water while the baby's in a proper position, what happened was the bag of waters went above the baby. It was really weird. No, the bag of waters went underneath the baby,
Uh-huh.
and they were afraid to break the water because they're afraid of the cord and everything.
Yeah.
So we did exactly what you said. We told baby, we didn't have a bell, but we told the baby to move down, and baby went up above. I mean, the baby moved like the baby moved positions. And even in a time when they were trying to speed up the clock, mom went to a meditative mode, and baby came down really quickly.
Mhm.
I mean, she like just started to dilate like crazy. And so baby did everything and was actually born in 3 pushes. It was really fast after that. So we come to find out because they actually induced her, the baby actually has a hearing problem. Could you explain to me how baby actually could respond, but
Yeah.
yet when they come out, feel like baby is now experiencing hearing problems?
Well, I mean, babies feel. I mean, that they're sensory and they're perceptive. And what we know from being with babies is that they're not going to hear the words, they're going to feel the vibration.
Okay.
And they're also have they're super like they have a super sensory sort of aspect of they can they did this one study of showing pictures to babies, and
Mhm.
every time right before a sort of a scary picture would come on the screen, the baby would fuss
Okay.
because they can sense what's coming. I mean, babies have that capacity for sensory input. So your intention as you're working with the baby will feel that. They're not hearing you say, okay, move down and to the right a little bit. They're feeling what it is you're saying. And there's a man that does a lot of this prenatal bonding, Gerhard Schroth in Germany. And he's taught the research of a man named, you're about to go do that, aren't you, Lisa? You're going to go do that?
Oh, I don't know what they're doing right now. I'm trying to get them to move on this.
Well, he teaches the Rafi's research where you send an image down because babies speak in imagery too, and they are able to get, all right, well, this is it. This is an image. This is a message, and mothers are taught in his training to be receptive to images. But
Okay.
babies want to be communicated with, and they can feel, and they can orient, and they're perceptive.
Yeah.
So vibration would be what I would say they got the message. And
Okay.
they're going to be doctors out there. They're going to say no way, or other people. But I mean, babies are amazing, and
Yeah.
but they have their own difficulties, and they have their own language that they speak with their body, with their face and their eyes. And if you can begin to understand and have the baby feel seen and heard, then things will really shift. Um, and then, so you were assuming the baby could get it. The mother felt in her own body what
Mhm.
needed to happen. Baby got it. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I mean that because that's what I'm like, and that's what I told her. I'm like, no one has to believe you. I mean, we witnessed it. I mean, everything that happened, and the baby was just quick on. I'm like, talk to baby and tell her what you want her to do, and she's gonna do it. And she was
Yeah.
like, it blew her mind. She's like, no way.
Yeah. Well, that story I told you of the mother, she said she only let me talk to the baby because she liked me. She didn't think it was going to work. But man, did it ever work. And
Yeah.
she had a great birth with that baby. And I met the baby after birth. You know, she was having a meltdown in a store, and I ended up being in the same store, and I started talking to the baby, and she absolutely recognized me. So
That's awesome.
it's very cool. Babies are great. Babies are amazing, actually. But let me finish my talk. Are you guys ready for part 2?
Yeah.
You ready? All right. Here we go. All right. We're on the pause. I love these images of nature, sort of as above, so below. All right. So I advocate for a trauma-informed approach, which is very popular now, and it's based on the work of the National Institute for Addiction and Substance Abuse. This is where I first came in contact with it, but now it's prevalent, it's everywhere, and it's in organizations, and it's even in maternity care. I mean, they're realizing now how the importance of prevention of trauma and how to be with it. Um, and there's some great organizations like Lumos Transforms and Chem and Defo. I would really recommend looking at her organization if you're truly interested. And there's a trauma-informed care in the perinatal period, which was written by Julia Song and Julia Taylor, which is a very good book. But this is an approach that really actively resists re-traumatization. So it's important to really be with our parents and understand that 1 in 3 of the people that walk in your door is going to have some form of adversity. Just assume and really behave in a way that will help someone make sense of their history and not feel ashamed and not feel um, somehow less than. Um, so here's just a couple slides about that. The adverse childhood experiences study really changed our world, and even though it's been analyzed and found fault by not really being as inclusive of diversity, but it really showed this pattern, this pattern of if you have these adverse experiences in life, your neurodevelopment will get disrupted, whether you skip a stage or you don't have a need that's met. That will create an imbalance in your development, socially, emotionally, cognitively. You'll adopt behaviors that will help you cope, like opioid addictions and other addictions. That's one of the good things that came out of this, is that the CDC said that addiction can be a way to cope with your adverse experiences. So people later in life who have these roots of their life, these adverse childhood experiences, can have these disabilities and social problems and often early death. So this is a major social problem, but it starts here in conception. Their approach is don't ask what's wrong with you, ask what happened to you. I mean, it's very compassionate care. And for healing, you just need a little bit more support to understand how to make sense of what happened. It's this creation of the coherent narrative. And the healing-centered engagement is another iteration of the trauma-informed, goes beyond the trauma-informed approach that says, we are not our trauma. There's more to us than that. What is right with us? So that's the sort of synopsis. What we get to is a more resilient structure, a more resilient person. We can begin to identify ways to integrate what's called buffering protection, especially for in a preventive model. How do you create this sort of buffer? And really helping people feel that there is someone there for them. That's the question that everyone wants to know, every child, every baby, is there someone really there for them? We can start preconception. So now I'm going to build the case. Like, this is the new system I would like to do to create these safe spaces for us to connect by really examining our system, the system of how we create community around pregnant and birthing families, how we run our maternity care, which is mostly hospital-based, 99%, maybe 98%. But we can look at people as if they're trees, or maybe even, our whole system, hospital system. I mean, we're looking at the health of people. It starts in the roots, and the roots of us are in our prenatal time and our birth. And they're just now they know that the things that happen for parents while they're pregnant, or even before they're pregnant, things that happen during birth can lay down a pattern for neurodevelopmental challenge later on in life. It may not show up until you're in your 20s or 30s, but stuff that happens during this time will affect the neurodevelopment. It's not in the adverse experiences yet, but it will be. I think it will be. Based on the research that I've read, you can have a predisposition to being more susceptible to birth trauma in your genetics, but I do believe we can create a more humane system for our families and babies. So consider, as the twig is bent, so grows the tree. And here are our perinatal roots. So in our intergenerational experiences, and then as we create patterns in our people, these are the roots: conception, implantation, discovery, the prenatal experience, birth, after birth, bonding, attachment, societal and cultural experiences. They're all there in layers. So what we want is to create a new story of the baby, a new story of care for the mother-baby dyad, because they're kind of one. They're different and they're so connected. And then a new story of birth and bonding. We can create now a tapestry as a metaphor for the new story. Every thread is important and works together to show the story of our life. This weaves a pattern. So when we're looking at the trauma-informed care and the baby, it works holistically. It really supports the mother-baby dyad, but it also supports the partner. It can be, the birthing parent and the partner. But we know that the baby has an experience of the mother and the mother's experience of the birthing parent. So we're looking at ways to provide layers of support for families and professionals, and this is our new model of care. These are my 5 steps, my 5 first steps, and you don't have to do them in order. In fact, sometimes it may be better to start with just promotion of peaceful communication, or supporting the parents to understand, or making repairs, but I'm going to go over these 5 points and then we can just ask some questions. All right, so the first one, prepare. Now this is something I do with a lot of my families and a lot of my students. I have them really look at these 9 points, that these are preparation. This is what every baby wants to know. Am I welcome? Am I wanted? Am I seen, felt, and heard? Am I safe? Do I feel protected, or a sense of belonging, and am I lovable? I work with parents and have them really address some of these things in themselves. So this is my preparation, using the 9 positive imprints, helping create a family experience around these, and understanding that every baby wants to know these things, and how sometimes we have to create these things in our families because there isn't a feeling of ever feeling safe or protected. Really slowing down and addressing these imprints. Imprint is a way of saying early experience. It's like, what is your experience of these things? And then create conscious, intentional birth practices with communication with the baby. Just prepare the baby. Emergencies do happen, and interventions are life-saving. So that's this is an aspect of preparation. You communicate with the baby. Early experiences, we know that babies learn. They're listening, they learn language, they do have their autonomic nervous system turned on in utero. They've been demonstrated, to sequence, like batting away an amniocentesis needle. We know that babies are very sensitive to pollution and smoking and drugs and alcohol. This little study with Little and Hepper, they examined babies of mothers who smoked, and even when the mothers started to think about smoking, the baby's heart rate went up. So this is how sentient babies are. They're so connected to the mother and the mother's thoughts. So you want to support these mothers. You want to help them. You want to listen to what it is that helps them feel resourced, connected, empowered. You want to help them feel strong in their bodies and help them feel that they can do this. So I love, like I said, I love research and data. So I have this data for you that it's more than just food and prenatal care. It's really finding your rhythm as a family. And the interesting data around this COVID impact of a decrease in prematurity, I mean, there's mysteries in there because we think that's very stressful now too, because they're so demanding that we don't we have to not have support in the hospital because of COVID. But look, babies stayed in longer, they grew better. Anyway, this is a big scientific experiment happening right now with our babies. So life is relational from the start, right? Okay, we're repair. What does that mean, repair? Um, so babies, like I said, are very forgiving. Uh, and if you can start in utero with them and say, well, I'm having a stressful day, it's not about you. Or if you are in a situation where you feel like your baby might be affected, you can talk to the baby and just say, I'm sorry, but it's stressful here. This is my experience. I'll do my best to protect and love you. Um, so there's this great book written by Ann Diamond Weinstein, Prenatal Development and Parents' Lived Experiences. And we know that babies are very vulnerable. But if you can talk with them and explain, and even, there's a way that when I'm working with families, that this can be a hard message that babies have experiences. And if we are not wanting to be pregnant or if we're having a stressful time, one of our greatest spiritual challenges is living in the real world, in the world of our dreams and our ideals and things that we want for ourselves as adults. And so really helping the baby to understand, and also the karma or the connection of these souls that are together. This is their story. And really slowing down and helping parents grasp their own power of their story as a family, because it is a threshold moment. When you have a baby, there's no different, there's no going back. You feel different, you are different. So these threshold moments like this are times when the professionals can come around and help, or family members. It is like one of the most formative times in our lives. Babies have a different experience of birth than we do. Um, so like mothers and birthing parents work in their labor to move the baby down, but the baby has their own journey and they have their own experiences of birth. And a mother may come in and say, oh, I had the best birth ever. And I'm like, well, that's not what the baby is saying. Or the baby can be really relaxed around the C-section that they had to go through, and even grateful, and the mother can be really devastated. So it is a bit of a journey to try and make repair. And sometimes when I have had a family come in that has had the desperate problems, I make repair to them for what the system is like. This is what needs to happen for your nervous system, is for us to say, I'm sorry, really. And then differentiation is a really important skill. And I do this all the time because I have parents that come in and they've had a difficult first birth or a difficult first baby that was really traumatized, and they didn't get the right amount of support, and they felt lost and abandoned. And so what I will often do is just start the differentiation process. So that was a difficult birth. So here's another story for you. I actually have a video of working with the baby in this story that I'm going to show you. I might have to stop and start the screen again so you can hear it. But this was a family that came to me. The mother had had a real difficult first birth. The baby was large, almost 10 pounds, and had shoulder dystocia. So the baby got stuck. And she had actually had to be induced. And the labor was augmented with Pitocin, and she had to have an epidural. All the things you hear about an induction happened to her. But it's important to also mention that during this pregnancy, her mother died. And That's a very difficult thing for a first-time mother when she's having a baby, to have her mother die. And we do know that this is an adverse experience for the baby on the inside also, that can create a neurodevelopmental imprint. So this was a difficult birth. Baby got stuck, and baby had to be cut out, and really deep cut. And then a mother had a hemorrhage and nearly bled to death. I remember when she came to see me and she said, I was so weak I couldn't hold my baby. I thought I was a bad mother. So I had to really spend a lot of time just normalizing the near-death experiences of her and her baby, and then really helping her get that this was a different pregnancy. She was pregnant again. And I had to be with her like, well, name all the ways that this pregnancy is different. Well, the conception date was different. The place where they're living was different. The hospital was different. The seasons were different. And each time we slowed down and felt those places, I had the mother differentiate, feel it in her body. But it was really hard for her. She was still so scared. I mean, I think that there was a lot of complexity to the birth and her psyche and her body. So it wasn't until I said, well, let's go back to before you had children. And the memory of being a professional and a yogi and an athlete came into her body, and she was really able to feel different. That the feeling of the difficult birth lifted. She said, I felt myself again. In her second birth, she made sure she'd not go post dates like the first time. She did a lot of self-care. She had her membrane stripped, which is a very gentle way to begin a birth, as opposed to Pitocin. She had a short labor with just a little bit of pain medicine, and the baby came right out, just really straightforward. And she said that new baby in the new story, you know, and she were able to really differentiate from the last birth, and that helped clarify her fears and really help me get a new start. So I worked with the baby, and this baby, this is one of my centers. I've had two centers. This was here in Charlottesville. The center I'm about to show you was the one when I lived in Vermont. So, but Mrs. Making Repair. Like, when repair comes when you genuinely say that was not what we wanted for you or for anyone. I work with the story, I slow the pace. We can retell the story, or we can allow for movement. So we really help meet the baby in their story. All right, so I'm about to show you a film of the baby that came. So this is the mother I just told you about. This is Rebecca and her baby. Maddie, I think the baby. Maddie is 4 or 5 in this story. And she brought the baby. This is the 10-pound baby that had the shoulder dystocia in the story I just told you. She wanted to resolve the birth trauma. So this is what the training is like when you become a practitioner. So you're about to watch me introduce tunnels to this baby. Now remember her story. She got stuck underneath the pubic arch, right? So we had just been playing with this arch, and she decided that we were playing Billy Goat's Gruff. You know, the little Billy Goat comes across and there's a troll. So I have a puppet of a troll that was in here, and you'll see her. She goes, okay, now you get the troll. No, not the puppet, Kate. You're going to be the troll. And you can't really hear her, so I'm going to tell you what she says. You'll see that she sets up the tunnels. It's the first time we're seeing it. She has us both she and her mother go through the tunnel, and then they run behind the puppet show there, where they slam the door in my face, right? So you'll hear this little girl. She says, okay, we get away, and we're going to slam the door in your face. The troll wants to get me and my mother, and we get away. So I'm going to have to stop and then show you the clip. Okay, hold on. I have to reshare so that you can hear everything. Here you go. The other side's tunnel.
That's a good idea. We can put them to go through here.
Yeah. And so she did that. I didn't do it. She decided.
Sneak up on someone there.
Okay.
Through the bridge.
That's a good idea. But there's that size tunnel too.
Ooh, look at that one's a long one.
You want to try going through one and let me know what you think?
Well, we could both sum up. Could you please move that over?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh wow, you're making it really
Make a
long.
long one.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
You gonna go through it, miss?
Do you want to go through the tunnel? I'll wait for you at this end.
And this could be the children's home. And you could be
Okay. All right, I'm gonna.
my.
Can you go through it
You
through
could
your
be
mom?
the bad guy, and might be waiting at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
But the troll is so close to the mommy.
Oh, okay.
Well, the troll's over here.
I'll be waiting.
He's over and like here sitting like right over there.
The troll's sitting over here. Okay.
And he's watching the mama.
Okay.
And I'll wait for you here.
All right. Should the troll come over?
No, not the toy troll. I mean you.
Me. You want me to come over or the troll to come over?
You are the troll, and we don't need a toy troll.
Okay.
We just need a live troll.
All right. I'm gonna be the live troll. And is the troll gonna come over to you?
No, he's watching the mama, and when he sees the little girl come over to mom, he walks gently over, and when the mom and the little girl sees the troll tries to get the kid, and the mom runs over the kid, and they run right into their house with the window, and they lock the door so the troll could come in. And the troll's getting closer to the door when it was closing, and snap! He snapped right in the doorway.
Yeah, so I want you all to get what she said. So the troll, who's me, is watching the mommy. And the kid comes down the tunnel and gets with the mother, and they go away. They sneak away into the house with the window, and they slam the door in the troll's face. But the troll is waiting. She's watching the mother and waiting to get the kid, the little kid, she says. That's her word. And so this is what happens. Okay.
But you can just pretend you are.
Okay.
Just be like this.
Okay.
Okay.
This involves a dog. Okay?
Okay. I see the little girl.
Come on.
I see the little girl.
Quick.
I'm hungry for little girls.
Run to the house, run to the
I'm
house.
coming over. They're going in the house, but I can still get them.
Oh, quick.
Oh, snap!
Snap.
All right, so that's her working to repair that experience of being separated from her mother, which happens a lot. And I thought that was just an example of a play sequence that we do. This is how we repair births, is we have play. All right, so 3 more points and then I'll stop. I know I'm getting a little bit longer than I normally do, but it's not long. So supporting parents to understand the baby's story and heal their own overwhelming experiences. So this is the training that we do. It's we take a trauma-informed history. We help parents create a coherent narrative about their lives so they can make choices. When I'm listening to parents, what I have found around births is really addressing these sort of types of things, whether there's too much happening, helping them make sense. This was a saying from one of my clients. It was right but so wrong. feelings of betrayal. Like this is, I want to help prepare parents and help them address any messages that may be conflicting, or and help find friendly ways to help them understand what might happen at birth, or parenting for that matter, or then just being missed. Like parents will feel like they're in so much pain. Why didn't anybody know? Why didn't they see me? So parents don't feel heard or seen or understood. These are some of the more difficult patterns for birthing parents. I teach these in my training, and most of the time, parents don't think that they're going to have trouble. So we try to find really sensitive, thoughtful ways to help birthing parents understand what are the variations on normal. And I don't have time to tell you this premature birth story, but a lot of what happened for that family when this family found me when I living here in Charlottesville, and she said, I've had two babies. One was premature and one was a normal birth. And I know that my premature birth baby, I really want a do-over. I want to have a chance to have a birth again. So we played those birth games, like we did tunnel games, but what really this baby needed was protection. I do find that a lot of premature babies, or even babies in general, if they're removed from their mothers and things that happen, protection is a theme. I wish I had time. If you all want to hear the story later, but I want to get through so I can, honor my word around keeping things to an hour. I also promote peaceful communication, pacing, and tempo and connection for the whole family. Using the tools of compassionate, contingent communication. This is what helps create that felt sense of safety, where communication is timely and connected and reflective and accurate. And finally, providing layers of support for the mother, birthing parent, but also the postpartum team. The two layers of support, a biological imperative, comes from the pre and perinatal somatic movement. We understand that if our teams, like this woman in the picture, Mary Jackson, home birth midwife, gets good support, she found that she didn't have a transfer in her private home birth practice for over a year, 60 labors. That's an amazing statistic. Most home birth practices, even here in Virginia where I live, about 20% transfer to hospital. They have to find a way to create these layers of support. It's like this story of COVID where people stayed at home and it decreased prematurity, it increased the birth weight. Well, because there are layers of support. The mother was resting, the father was there. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're still in the mystery about this thing that's happened in COVID. I also would like to really support the partner and staff more. The staff are a very important part of a birth. They are the surround. They are the energy of what's supporting that family to have the baby. And oftentimes they'll maybe have seen too much demise, or they've had their own stresses. I really want to help them feel good in their body too, and understand their own experiences and what happens for them when they come to support a birth. So we're creating a positive change. This is some of the things I saw at the 2 years ago when I first wrote this presentation, but there's even more now. And I can describe each of these, but if you'll have this presentation, you can go find these places. And even around the world, they're birthing patterns that work, birthing experiences that have really good outcomes. So we can document these and teach out of them. Overall, what I would want to promote is this theme of neuroprotection. This came from what they do in NICUs now. It's a theme, it's a developmental trend, it's a training trend, but we're looking at ways to integrate this sense of a healing environment during the NICU, but it can be for the whole birthing experience. Like this person who who did this programs talks about taking the time to talk to babies, because we talk to adults. We can start to apply these things to normal birth straightforward birth, not just complicated birth. It's a paradigm shift. So what we're talking about is a new model of care. It starts preconception, includes the baby. Baby and birth trauma are addressed immediately. Trauma resolution in adults includes birth and bonding and attachment. And the parents get a chance to reflect on their own history, and it addresses the baby within. So consider what needs to happen. In preconception, really helping people understand their own history, but even their own baby in history. We can help them reflect, help them understand who was there for them and what the impact that was on their lives and what are their resources. Or it'd be ideal if we could have more conscious conception, prenatal bonding, more conscious birth, and no separation at birth from mother and birthing parent and baby. And then more conscious parenting. Parenting is a healing journey and a hero's journey. So these are my programs, and these are the references. I'm going to give them to you. I'll send this out to those of you who attended tonight. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop my live Facebook feed, and we can just talk, okay? Good night, Facebook. And I'm open to questions. I know if you guys have to leave, it looks like I talked for just over an hour. I want to honor my time with you, but I'm happy to discuss. Thank you for coming. Questions, comments? Anybody? Nobody?
It's a lot.
Yeah. Tell me more.
I'm a birth doula for Family Foundation's Early Head Start, and in Pittsburgh. And having had traumatized births myself, and then trying to help families through birth, and it's often traumatic, low-income families don't always get the best treatment. And so it's a lot.
Yes. Yeah, tonight's was really packed, and I kind of talked a little fast because I wanted to get it all in.
But it's wonderful. I feel like I should, call my boss and say we need Kate to come and talk to everybody.
I would love that. I have now training programs, and I can do little tiny bits, and I've gotten quite passionate around preconception, and then also helping parents really understand themselves in a way that feels nourishing as opposed to intense or triggering. But yeah, I would love to train people to understand. And over the years, because I've been really applying myself years and years, I have felt improvement. Like that one slide of all those programs that I feel like I see change, and I feel so encouraged. And to see, like, my biggest pleasure lately has been fetal brain researchers, because they get it, they see how important it is to have births that are gentle and babies that are treated well, because it changes the genome. One thing I didn't know until last year was that birth affects every gene in the body. And so, like, why not be more conscious about how we help our families cross the threshold? It can set up health for that family for generations. Ooh, I just got goosebumps. Yeah. Happy to come to Pittsburgh. Is that where you are, Pittsburgh?
Yes. I'm
Thank
part
you.
of that University of Pittsburgh group that was a part of Michael's training.
Yeah, you guys are a good group. You guys came along with me to the next one to see me as a person. Like I want to write a whole presentation, see me as a person from the baby's perspective.
That would be wonderful.
That's what I do. So I'm like, all right,
Oh,
see me as a person from the baby's perspective.
sign me up.
All right, I'll let you know. Okay, Simone, thank you for coming. Let me know how I can nurture you in Brazil. Let me know what you need, and congratulations on your marriage. She just got married.
Oh,
I don't get
congratulations.
married. I don't get married. It was a Facebook confusion. I don't understand.
Oh, I thought you were getting married.
But thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Then I
All right.
really love your work, and I am learning a lot of with you.
Yes,
And
thank you, Simone.
but I really have to leave now.
Okay.
Kisses
Yeah.
and thank you for your work.
Ciao.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, it is past the time, and thank you, Manjari, for your comment. And I know it's time to go, but so thank you for coming to my talk, and to be continued. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Kate.
All right, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Thank you, Kate.